Hi, Haru. I'm happy to have you. And yeah, I would like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself first, and then let's dive right into it.
Yeah, so my name is Haru. I'm actually currently a PhD student at UC Berkeley. I'm with Berkeley AI Research under the advice of Professor Shankar Sastry, where I currently mostly interested in working on humanoid robots, especially in humanoid robotic controls. And before that, I was at Carnegie Mellon University working on my master in robotics, fortunate to be advised by Professor Xue and John Dolan. And a little bit before that, I was like a bachelor at UCSD, and then back then I was doing mostly, I think, autonomous vehicle researches. But that's about like a little bit about me as like a researcher. Yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, as we talked before, I am all about the people behind robotics, and I really would like to understand how you'll be able to do the things you're just doing. I think a lot of people would like to be in the same position. I think there's a lot of prestige in the universities you're working for and for the people you're working with. And yeah, maybe we can go a bit back in time and you walk us through, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think I don't want to like throw the story to be like too cliche, but like I do. I think as a child, like really like robotics. I think a lot of that, playing. I don't know if you were familiar with those like Lego bricks that are like programmable. Like those were like I think what
Uh,
20 years ago. Oh, sorry, yeah, 15 years ago probably. And I think that's when a lot of this really took off. Like I was really interested in doing like basically building anything I want, like doing robotics little bricks or like building some like other stuffs. I think yeah, like that was me when I was young. And I think a lot of this really makes me feel like I can build something. I think when I went into college, I think that's when I joined like some research in autonomous vehicles and actually especially autonomous racing. That was like another cool endeavor, like stuff that you might want to, like, it's like be interested in learning more about later on. But I think a lot of that effort comes from just willing to build stuff, especially I think building a good engineering background and then like build interesting products and share with the communities. I think that's when I started to really engage with a lot of the open source communities around in robotics, especially the ROS communities. That's like people I interact a lot with through different projects. And I think that's when I pivoted a little bit also from engineering to research. It's like I sort of asked myself like the question, right? Like if I really want to address some of the challenges that I was looking at back in the days, like I was like, what would be the best approach? And I think it turns out like you need to actually, I think, have a deeper background and then dive into the research aspect before you can actually start to really achieve something. So that's when I started to do robotics research, where I focus mainly on controls, like not to get too technicals, but it basically concerns with building basically really good low-level motor functionalities for all kinds of robots, cars included, of course, but also more interestingly, recently is the controlling humanoids, for example. Yeah, so
um,
yeah, that's a little bit of motivation there, but yes, yeah.
I mean, you mentioned a few things that I'm interested in. I think one of the things that you said was building stuff, and you said you started very early on building things with Lego, right? Because here the opportunity is to actually use your hands and build stuff, right? And I use this analogy of writing down your thoughts because it will clear out things. And the same, I think it's with building. You have a lot of theories and plans and ideas, but when you start building, that you hit reality, and then you will see a lot of things that I assumed were wrong or I didn't know too much about it, didn't have too much unnecessary experience with it, right? So, or in the wrong context. So, when you said you've been part of the like racing topic. I think this is very interesting because we all know that there's a very high demand on hardware parts, right? So, and everything is fast because the competition is high and the challenges that are happening are competitive. So there's a big learning curve. But maybe you can tell me a little more how this was and how you experienced, because I think that a lot of people are interested in, but some of them don't have the how do you say this opportunity to join right away because
Yeah,
they
yeah.
there is a little bit of braveness you need to enter,
Yeah,
even though
yeah,
this is
there's
totally
a curve.
unnecessary.
Yeah, I think this is like one reason I like about the open source communities, especially around in robotics. I think there's a huge culture of open sourcing stuff, and also like a huge culture of like doing robotic and then use robotic as a tool to like do educations for not just kids but also like basically people that doesn't really necessarily know what to do with their college degrees whatsoever. And autonomous racing was an interesting topic. Like you might have like learn about like platforms like those mini RC cars you can build at home, and then you put like Raspberry Pis and cameras and all the stuffs on it, and you can do AI learnings on them, and then like get started like doing some like cool autonomous driving stuff. I think yeah, that's where I think eventually where I started, where I think a lot of people started. And what really elevated us was, I think, when we get the chance to really join this competition called the Indy Autonomous Challenge. It's probably more like a USA thing when we hear about Indy cars, but it's so basically the whole spirit of the competition. Oh, by the way, it's like joined by not only just US schools, but also a bunch of European schools like TUM. And I think Polytech University of Milan, a bunch of other schools in it as well. But the spirit of the competition is to basically apply some of the state-of-the-art, I think, technologies in robotics, in controls, especially in perceptions and all these different fields, and then see if we can actually build real race car autonomous agents that can travel at 200 miles an hour and battle against each other head to head. And that's the spirit of the whole competition. I think it was an interesting topic for me when I joined, just because I think I was more doing autonomous vehicle engineering stuff back then. And like immediately this caught my attention, right? Like this is like super fun. This is like engineering, but elevated to the next level where you're, interfacing with the most sophisticated hardware in the world. And I think it took me a while to really dive down and really start to like interact with all the hardwares we have. And as probably everybody know, like robotics is like half of the time it's a hardware problem. And you really need to have the solid engineering skill, and really like these problem motivates you to really solve the engineering, because like you can literally see your car go faster, or be very happy about it, be very feel like a great achievements, and then achieve a lot of this, and you really put a lot of like solid engineering efforts into learning all of this.
I
And
Sorry,
yeah.
didn't want to interrupt your flow, but I was just curious, and before I lose the thought, we were talking about autonomous driving, and you were talking about open source and control. By any chance, a few weeks ago, I had the CEO of Ducky Town
Oh yeah. Wow.
in the chat here, and I think he was deep into control as well as a student and PhD. And yeah, later on, I mean, Ducky Town is about autonomous driving, right? So bringing people next to or bringing the robotics towards people through an autonomous vehicle. So, but yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think yeah, I know Ducky Tongue. Yeah, that was like a very famous project back then. I think a lot of intuitions of I think what people built later on was from that. But yeah, I was talking about, I think mostly I want to like address a little bit on like the whole point of like having an open source community. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think was like whatever things I was doing back then is like we were relying on a lot of the manufacturers to have like open source hardware drivers for their like really state-of-the-art hardware that's like literally on commercial passenger vehicles. But like some of them were really willing to put the work into like developing open source like drivers or interface or debug with the communities, and then push out really high quality work. And like there was this whole open source community around actually building open source autonomous driving projects called the Autoware Foundation. It's like a
Mhm.
coalition of like a small autonomous driving companies that put together and then like actually publish like open sourced high quality autonomous driving system, and then really like let the community share that and then use it for all kinds of purposes, from deployment to education. I think yeah, a lot of that really foster like a good I think community of people. If you're really like early on with your your college or whatever, you can really easily pick up like these great knowledges from the community and then really get started with robotics. I think that's what's really I think beneficial.
I asked this question a few people already in my network, especially now that this year was really the year of AI, embodied AI, with humanoids, and so we see what Meta is doing with its open source llama models, right? And my question was, and here I need to be very honest, I don't want to pretend I'm not too deep into the technical issues itself, right? It was just from a commercial background perspective. So you have Meta doing this not because it's such a company who would like to be so open sourced and helping the community, right? It's you're gaining so much, as you said, from the community because now instead of paying researchers, you have researchers that are using your tool, and your the learning curve can be just exponential because you have the entire potential, the entire world that is working on those things with your tools, right? And then my
Mhm.
thought was, what if you're working on humanoids, but then you decide instead of raising half a billion of dollars to pay the best engineers in the world, why not making a few of those things? I mean, hardware you cannot make so easily open source, especially if you put the entire work and money into it to get the entire supply chain. But like the software behind that, right? I mean, Figure is doing it with OpenAI, but what if another humanoid company would decide we have open source humanoid startups I'm very familiar with, but now I'm talking about like raising money, being really into the game. Let's say 1X, for example.
Mhm.
If they decided, hey, let's go, let's do this open source, let's really make this the humanoid for the people. What are your thoughts on that?
I know exactly the company that does that. Isn't that what like Ksco is doing?
Who?
Uh, the Ksco Lab guys, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, but this is, I mean, this belongs to the small startups I was referring earlier to. But now let's say 1X or one of the
Okay.
Chinese ones, or um,
Right.
um, Boston Dynamics, or one of the
Hmm.
like the big players. Because this now we're talking on a larger scale, right? Because the guy from Scale Labs had Matt here on the podcast as well a few months ago, and they're just like five guys, and I think the money they raised was just to be enough for those five guys. But yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, it's really hard to say. I think if like some big company really decides to like push forward with open source design, I think maybe you can like draw some like analogy to like how things, for example, has been going on with, for example, smartphones. I don't know, 10 years ago, where like you have like Android, right? Like all of a sudden, like I think doing a lot of the open sourcing and as like a big company, and then like that basically like eat away a lot of the like shares of like other stakeholders that's in the market. I think like certainly I think it has its good side and its bad side. I think good side as being of course like open sourcing something like that, like a good high quality stuff for the community is like obviously always welcome. But also I think obviously the company themselves have like a deeper thinking behind in terms of like taking up more shares in the market. So it's hard to say. I think in the end like it will depend on like it's like how much like benefit it really has brought to the community. Like you know in terms of like are we like basically if they're doing that are we like bankrupting like you know more humanoid startups or like discouraging people from being creative about their solutions, or are we actually you know have found something that is really truly state of the art that has just put out by this company and everybody should just use it? I think that's like debatable, right? Like in the end, like you know, have they really pushed forward the whole industry of humanoid and really foster like an environment for like other like further like innovations, or like you know are they blocking it?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. I think it's like crazy to imagine. I think I had this like thought once, right? Like you know, what if like some Chinese company just decide that like They really want to like play this price game and then just like drastically reduce the price of all the humanoids and then try to beat everyone out of the market, right? Like if would it be bad? Would it be like good? I think it's really hard to say. I think on the short term, certainly it's bad because it's basically bankrupting all the other like creativity is coming from all the other companies. But and also like good in the short term because like not everybody gets free humanoids. Yeah.
I mean, the if you're looking at the last few, um, I don't know if the English word is like fairs or exhibitions about humanoids, especially in China, how many new companies just popped up because they are funding it tremendously. Here the question comes up, and I saw, I can't remember where I saw the headlines, but like China is now having the possibility of building armies of humanoids, right? And what they're going to do with it.
Right.
And I think it was even Jody Rose from Sanctuary Eye who commented on that. So because he said, yeah, let's build an army here on our side. And so when we're talking about open source, here always comes the idea into mind. So what if this could be uh, like a way to prevent us so this gets only in the hand of those who can afford it versus this is now in the hands of the people, even though there's only a limited of people who know about humanoids,
Mhm.
robotics, and all the technical aspects to be able to build it and control it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's even deeper problem, right? Like that's the AI bill that they were just trying to veto here in California, right? Like should we
Mm.
really regulate on all of these AI technologies, or should we just like make them like more public available and then right like who's taking accountable for it? I think that's
I
yeah.
mean, it's a big issue here in the European Union, right? As we are trying to be a bit more conservative towards things, and innovation is a bit harder here. Funding is harder here. Building companies is harder here. So there is a wild jungle and walls of
Yeah.
regulations, and they're not only meant to be harmful, right? From perspective of an entrepreneur, it can look like, but in the very end, we are unfortunately need to uh, prevent or uh, how do you say this, protect people from themselves. And now you would say people are always in charge on themselves and they can think for themselves, but we know the reality is a little bit different, right? So
Yeah.
people are stupid, right? We do things, stickers on, don't drink this, don't touch this, because there are some people who did this, right? So, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, also I was just like trying to point out also the research community is like I think in general quite disconnected from my point of view like to whatever is like happening with like the whole regulation of like AI going on. Like literally I think just last week, right? Like I think there's a lot of efforts also from actually government side in the US to actually like connect more with the research community here at UC Berkeley and then basically
Mm.
trying to like tell them more about like what's been happening with AI regulations and whatever because they feel like basically all the researchers have been like quite not care too much about what's ha really happening with all the regulations and they're like to the point where basically they have to like send people down here and then basically explain what's happening with the bills like how to build accountabilities and then all kind of stuff. It's like concerning, but also, part of like the art of balancing, I think, regularizations and the creativity is important.
You were mentioned earlier that you really started to dig deeper into research, even though you were very hands-on. And a lot of the people I'm talking to in this podcast are CEOs and founders, and a lot of them they did the jump back from academia, or not back, sometimes back, but from academia to into the being an entrepreneur, being to commercial size, the business size.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself? I mean, at the moment you're very deep. You're in your PhD right now, right? Is there anything that you can see for the next few years? What is what you're interested in? Do you think this is the environment I really wanted to be, and now I am, and I really would like to stay here?
Yeah, I think as far as I think humanoid research goes, there is I mean it's just like probably my personal opinion, but there is still a way to go. I think startups would be more hyped about it. They would talk about they'll have humanoids shipped to everybody's home in next year. I think the researchers, some are more, I think, reluctant to say that, and I might be one of that. Like I would say maybe a couple more years down the road, I think that would be like a better time to like call off all of this. But I think right now, like what would be good for me is like a really good, I think research platform in terms of like really connecting with all the other researchers in the same field. And luckily, really Berkeley and Stanford and the entire Bay Area really have a lot of people that's doing that, and that is great. Like I get to like connect and socialize and really exchanging research ideas with those people. And also, it's not just the people; it's also I think people, the companies that's really also behind. Not just like big tech companies that's doing it, but also like startups like K-Scale Lab. I think those people, right, like doing wonderful things for the community. I think that's really something that I really value.
Mm. I mean, I'm really curious to just the other day when I saw Lethic, he's doing Red Rabbit robotics.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if you've seen his humanoid.
Oh, well, not personally, but yeah, I do follow him on X. Yeah,
Yeah,
looks
so he's sorry.
yeah, looks very cool. Yeah, yeah,
So we there's a few that are really even, and he's a one-man show, right? So you really see that people, even with very small teams, are able to push it very far, right? These are 3D printed components, drives and accelerators and all the they are all from the shelf, so something that you can buy. It's not some. I mean, some of these things have been developed on their own, but so this is really the open source approach. And we talked about. He was a guest already, and I asked him if he could be a guest again because there's so much happening in the last few months on his side. And what really astonished me, because whenever I talk to people and tell them that I'm on X and talk to people in that area, uh, no, it's they are very much surprised by the fact that there might be some bubbles still intact on their platform without the hate speech, without the wokeness, without the racismness. So really people helping each other, right? So being in that community, and I mean, they can be consider themselves as competitor, right? But they're helping each other out. This design, I would do like this and that. I tried this and that, and so this is
yeah.
something that really surprised me, and I really like the fact that you say um, this is the vibe not only online. This is the vibe also outside in the still real world, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think this is like maybe something to think about for people that's like, really has been really committed to like doing open source projects, and also like people has who has been really deeply committed to academia. It's like, sometimes I think there's like a lot can be done if, these people like can really group together and work together. Like I think I've been doing like a lot of like these like open source community level kind of projects with like all the racing car project I was talking about. I think that really I think inspired me to like solve some challenging research problems. That's why like I jumped a little bit, and then not right now in academia, but like might jump back later on if I wish to. But I think like bringing some of that idea across like these two groups of people is very important. Like you have like people in the open source community really generally have like really solid engineering skills, right? Like, and then you bring that into the academia, and then you have like really better robot platforms to work with, and or some research problems really, if I can be frank, is like non-existence if you have like really good hardware and really good engineering. Um, and like I think likewise also I think the academia have I think a lot of the state of the arts I think thinkings and technologies that can help engineers doing open source community projects, and in case they are on some kind of like a weirdly like a wrong or like a convoluted path towards like solving what can really be like a really simple problem in academia. Yeah, I
Mm.
think yeah.
You said that you might dive back deeper into it later on, and yeah, the possibilities. I think this is also something that uh, I really would like to display. I have a lot of people that are coming from software side and then dove into hardware or the other way around because they thought, okay, this is a skill I'm missing, right? I'm always depending on other people. So now I'm just don't feel stupid in the beginning, right? Because this
Right.
is this is how it meant to be. How can you not feel stupid when you are entering and you I hope the light will get better. No, so this is something that I think people need to be aware of. Like when you start something, you can't be good right away, right? You do need to spend some time on things, right? And yeah,
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
definitely something.
Yeah, I often have, I think, more junior students, undergrads especially, that like wants to work on projects, right? Like humanoid or race cars or whatever. And I think usually they would ask, I have this kind of skills, blah blah blah. I've been doing hardware, and I want to shift more to software. I want to do AI, whatever, blah blah blah. Like, what can I get started, right? Like, can I start to work on this like a really convoluted problem like altogether? And yeah, I think a lot of time, like my suggestion would be like, you can take it easy in the beginning, right? Like, I know you have like very solid background from whatever you have been doing very well. So I think there's definitely a lot of the momentum you can carry over from there, and even like solid skill sets you can just carry over, right? Like, and then get yourself comfortably like set up with like something that you can really work on and help with on the research project in the beginning. And I think that really helps building the right confidence as you gradually learn about more stuff that you don't know later on.
And something I was interested in, because you said that your path had been more or less paved by the things you have been interested in contact with, right? But a lot of
Mm.
people that are approaching me, especially they're about to become PhD students, also PhD students. So, or even entering university, how do you find your way in that world, right? There's so many things to learn, and as you said, right, if you dig deeper into it, then you only understand that there's not too many things you actually know about, right? So, uh, not getting overwhelmed. Is there any strategy that you follow? Was it somehow easy for you because you just followed your curiosity?
Um, yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was like somewhat easy for me, but I think I still like it's not like I just did it in like one shot. I think I still did like try to explore different possibilities, like working a little bit with like different groups of people, try to see if like these projects would turn out to be working very well. So I think that's probably the kind of mindset that I think would work. It's actually, I think, funny enough that it's like very tied to what people recently really want to talk about in AI is the whole idea of like scaling up searching. Like you can search for a very good solution, like if you are willing to search long enough of time. And I think as like people entering into like junior people entering into college or whatever, I think they can definitely explore a little bit with different research groups, find if something's working out with them. And I think I've seen uh, quite a few like I think students that's like joined whatever project that I was working on, worked for a bit and leave, and turns out to be also much more successful in some other stuff they're more interested in working with. So I think basically don't be afraid of try and then try different flavors of things. I think make your sample more complete. Let's say. Yeah.
But but not. I think something I would like to add: not change because things are getting hard, right? If things are not interesting, then sure, why spending more time with it? But trying to avoid certain hard topics. And I was doing this earlier in my life very often, right? Jumping from topic to topic because things
Yeah.
getting too hard. But in the very end, there's no space that is easy. So no, there's no niche that is easy. There's no path that is easy, right?
Yeah.
Some might
Yeah.
be easier for you because you have certain skill sets or certain talents, and but there will always be a plateau. There will always be a wall that you need to go through. So uh, once I learned that one, things getting much better in my life.
Yeah, I think achieving that balance is a hard robotics problem. It's how do you keep exploring versus actually exploiting whatever like you have built on top of, right? Like I think you need to have the right balance between the amount of time you're willing to dive down into something versus like willing to explore. That's like very closely related to robotics, I would say, actually.
Mm. So yeah, Berkeley, and I think this is one of the university where a lot of people would like to be part of. Is that something that you're aware of while you're in, right? Because people are saying, or I think studies are showing that after 6 months, everything wears off. So there's this big name, this historical name, this prestige name, and then you are now right into it. And here it doesn't have to be positive or negative, right? But yeah, what is your how do you feel? How is your daily life? How is working?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely still in that honeymoon period.
Nice.
Yeah, I literally just joined Berkeley on the PhD program, but yeah, I think I've been also trying to have the right expectations about these schools, UC Berkeley especially. And I think I find one common misconception that people outside of the institution often think is like Berkeley is like so highly, I think like people compete against each other in a toxic way, but I just find that to be totally not true. I think I find myself talking to a lot of people. I think a lot of robotics researchers actually that's like sharing similar minds and be really open and frank about research ideas. I find that to be like really valuable.
Mm.
Yeah.
Which is a very nice environment to be in, right? So I'm always surprised by when I hear from different people, different situations or environments where it's toxic. I'm asking myself, so yeah, okay, so you have been punished to work your way through that environment, and now you are continuing this, forcing other people because you're asking yourself, I had it hard. Why should someone else had it easy, right? Versus this is so much nicer if everyone is just like, I mean, there's competitiveness, right? And there needs to be, right, in some certain way, but not in the price of I can only win if you lose. I can
Uh,
still win even if I lose against you, right? So interesting that you say this. And is there something that you see, you think this is specifically towards this area because you were talking about the Bay Area in general, or do you think if you have been in contact with more international people, is there something that you see? Maybe this is unique to the robotics company community. I would like to think.
yeah, I think I don't have enough like I think sample points to answer
Mm,
that fully answer that question, but I mean, like from my point of view, I think I do see Bay Area as having I think a lot of opportunities. Especially for robotics, because it's not like, strictly like something that a big company can do or like something that strictly like academia can do. It's like something that often you would find a lot of hackers among the people doing robotics. You will find people that's I think very centered in the communities. Um, and yeah, I think a lot of that is really only fostered in the Bay Area, where you have people or VCs that's willing to fund people to do like small projects, even if it doesn't really work out, it's fine. Or people coming out of big companies starting their own startups. I think these stories are like so ubiquitous in the Bay Area that like you almost like don't feel it. But I think just by talking to all the a lot of people in Bay Area doing robotics, I do feel like this is something that's important, something that's unique to this area.
mm. Uh, I think it was an article. No, I think it was a workshop I was a big part of. And they were doing the comparison about how governments are funding startups. And here in Europe, I mean, we do have a startup ecosystem,
Mhm.
and so it was about France putting up 6 billion for like in a program over a longer period of time to fund startups, and then 4 years later, Germany came up with like 1.2 billion. Uh, so 7, 8 billion versus 1 billion, even though we are from a marketplace. We are, yeah, at least as strong as France, right? So here you really can see how much people value innovation. And so this is something that now goes a little bit into a political or personal point of view. But you were mentioning innovation, and I was talking about this before because it's something that bothers me. I'm surrounded, and I've been in the ecosystem of innovation for quite a while now. And I see this. You were mentioning the funding things that not necessarily being successful or funding things that not necessarily make too much sense in the first place. Even this is very broad now. But really being having the money first, I think this is a topic, right? If you have the money, then it's easier to spend it. but being risk adverse and really saying, I'm only touching if I can be 100% sure there will be a positive ROI within
Right.
1 year, 2 years. So I think this is definitely something, having this different kind of mindset can really accelerate innovation.
Yeah, I think that's where I think yeah, definitely a lot of that in the Bay Area and also definitely a lot of that in like the open source communities, right? Like these are the group of people that has a little bit of money that they're willing to try a bunch of stuffs and doesn't matter if it fails, people are really motivated. I think a lot of the like new great company ideas really start off of it. Yeah.
I mean, I think the hype helps, right? So because then you actually see, okay, so it is possible, right? I mean, the you were talking about the years, right? It's might not be next year that we have them all at home, but really it might be a couple of more years. But having the balls, having the I mean, some people would say it's like pure lying or
Mhm.
false promises, but it can be seen as motivation as well, right? Because if you say, okay, it might be possible, so I might put my work and effort into it. So because a few years ago, people would have said, okay, there's no way that you see walking around humanoids that can do stuff, right? And now we're talking about price points is really 5K, 10K, 20K. Is that really reasonable within 1, 2, or 3 years, right? And I think a lot of these companies who are VC funded do need to make that kind of promise, right? So
Right.
they get that kind of funding. So the ROI will be there very soon. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah. In 2 to 3 years, I think that's gonna be when I think the first wave hits. There's an old Chinese saying. I don't think it's too old since it concerns like doing startups, but like when the tide goes low, like you get to see who's swimming naked. I don't know
Mm.
if that's appropriate, but yeah, like when the hype just like really dies out, like I think you really get to see which company is doing the right things and yeah.
Mm. I mean, you're in research, so we like to believe that research is always a few years ahead, right? What is your thought on that?
You mean like academia being a couple of years ahead
Hmm.
or?
Yeah.
It's hard to say. I think academia on the issue of like think really robotics and humanoids is really like academia on the issue of like LLMs. Right, like I think building really a lot of the next generation robotics stuff where we're talking about foundation models or like interfacing large language models, vision language action models, right? Like all of these require tremendous amount of resources to train. I think that's not something that academia will be just be able to pull off on its own alone. I think a lot of that scaling up would eventually definitely happen in the industry before like being like gradually distilled to the academia to be used as like research work. But I think that's open-ended question as to like what the academia should do, like in light of the previous example of how big companies and LLMs are. Um, I think academia should definitely like think about, for example, smarter structures that we can make things more efficient, other than just purely scaling up in a very brute force way. Those might be interesting research to do, and those might also fundamentally, I think, revolutionize the training of these large agents. But yeah, it's like academia, like I think really should be, I don't know, like working very closely at least with the industry to really get a feeling and understanding of like what's really the state of the art. But this can be difficult.
I would like to go back to the our first I mean you were not aware of this, but our first exchange point. So I saw that video and I thought, dude, this is nice. Maybe
Yeah.
you can tell us a little bit about this, even though this is not a technical session usually. Maybe this can be a glimpse for people who are really interested and would like to know more about this. So I'd like you to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about it.
Yeah. I think I can do a little sales pitch for I think the general audience. I think without I think being too I guess broadly general about it and pissing my advisor off. But I think if I make some like really wide claim, like trying to get the general audience to understand what we're doing, like that's definitely
Hmm.
gonna piss off my advisors because they could be like, yeah, you're like being too, I think, too optimistic about the research project. But okay, so here's the pitch. The work we're trying to do, I think, follows a very famous quote from Richard Sutton, the Bitter Lesson. I think hopefully that the people that's like a little bit technical would understand a little bit from the quote, which says that the only things that scales very well in machine learning is number one, learning, and number two, searching. So learning is something that's really being popular these days, right? Like you have, for example, in robotics, you train reinforcement learning agents offline simulations for some millions of like equivalent hours, and then that seems to work very well. But the idea of searching, I think, has is something that hasn't been explored very well. But you do see people start to explore that, for example, in other domains like LLMs. For example, the recently released ChatGPT o1 thing, right? Like where the people are they're doing some kind of online sampling and searching idea, where they generalize like diverse. They generate diverse responses to a single query, and then have some kind of a score and feedback built on top of it, and so that you can basically pick the best like feedback out of that and then provide that back to the user. So like this is the whole idea of like what we call the inference time searching scaling up. Which basically says that you can utilize your GPU online to do very very different things other than just inferencing a model. You can use it to sample like a bunch of solutions, and then that is seems to scale very well and could be as powerful as learning. So in this work, we show that even without the learning part, like even just scaling this whole searching idea online would work. So like you probably have seen the robot, right, like doing crazy jumping on crates or the humanoid joggings or whatever. All of those demos are training free, meaning those are like classic model predictive control problems where you don't train any model or deep learning or whatever. You just simply provide basically the problem structure definition, and then you just let the algorithm do a searching of the best solution, literally sampling through thousands of potential possible solutions online, and then until you find and converge into the best solution. So I think, yeah, that's really the whole story about scaling up. What would be like one practical, I think, application of our work on the whole DAO MPC thing is that imagine you are a RL reward engineer or whatever, like in a robotics company where you're trying to train the RL policy for maybe 24 hours or even more, like a week, try to train a policy that works. And traditionally your workflow would be like this, right? So you go ahead and you do the training, right? Like you wait for like a day, and come back and check and see how things are going. But then your reward fails, and then you have to go back and into the simulation, retune and repeat the whole thing. It's like very tedious. The turnaround time is so long. But what we're showing here is basically, we can also just do online searching. If you just scale up online searching, you don't even need any learning. And this kind of searching would give you back some kind of solution that already makes sense and can help you visualize what would happen if you start to train an RR agent. So immediately your workflow turnaround time goes from like a couple hours to days down to only like a matter of minutes. So now you would be tuning these rewards with something like our work or like its follow-up. Maybe we'll have something more advanced, but you would be tuning something with these like searching-based scale up ideas until it like the rewards start to make sense. And then you can say, yeah, off you go. And now it's a good shape for training. So that's the whole like immediate idea of the work. But I'm pretty sure my advisor could be pretty pissed off like if I try to advertise more, but yeah.
I mean, if people are really listening to the very end of it, because there's some stats where you can see how long, how interesting things are, and people are really paying attention to them. So I hope this is a reward nugget for those who made it through. For me, it was a very nice yeah, discussion. I was really happy that you took the time, and especially on such a short notice. I think we talked a few days ago, and you said, "Yeah, why not?" So this is and you make it happen through even though we had a huge time difference here. So I know this from my work, having people on the West Coast can be challenging to find the right spot. So yeah, but I'm very happy to have you here as a guest. I'm doing this often. Sometimes I get a more insights of the person itself, but so I'm asking. So not necessarily in your work, but what do you would like to do, to see, to realize?
Sorry. Oh, wait, was that the end of the question? Sorry.
Yeah, I know. As I said, so normally this can be tied to a company if you're a founder, right? But this can be tied to your work. But it doesn't need to be only be tied to your work. So what you would like to see, what you would like to do in the future, what you would like to see, be you being part of maybe something that you built. Is there something you're looking ahead, something that you have in mind, a goal, or is there something you would like to accomplish?
Um, Yeah, I think broadly speaking, I think I really want to see the whole I think humanoid things scale up and then be part of like people's everyday life. I think as a roboticist, if I can call myself that, and I think that's like the number one dream that I've been having is to ha basically achieve like that idea, and then you can have humanoid walking around in people's daily life. It's like I think half a childhood dream, half like basically just like pure I think out of the excitedness for humanoid, but also half out of I think really just the thinking that maybe humanoid could solve some of the biggest issues that our society is facing with the aging populations or with I think a lot of the society issues, I think. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I hope that and I think this is one of the main reasons why I joined this industry here, even from a different point of view, being part of something, being hoping that you at least can contribute to towards which direction things are going, right? And
Right.
creating versus just standing on the sideline and watching how things are, like being more active versus just being a bystander and hoping that things turn out well. So yeah, I think this is a good I think this is a very good answer. And yeah, I hope we uh how we will be able to accomplish this. You from a research point, from a business perspective, hoping this will be a success. And yeah, from a personal point of view also, right? Would be nice if we can use this huge lab of technology in a good way.
Yeah. I think yeah, there's like a mixture of personal ambition and right like with some kind of I think still care for the society.
Yeah, at least we hope.
Right.
Then yeah, have a nice evening. My day is about to start. Looking forward to see more of you.
Yeah. Super.
Take care.
Yep.
Bye bye.